The night went way better than she thought it would. Eva Terry and her date enjoyed a fantastic dinner in South Beach, Miami. It was really the company that made it special, not just the meal. Braxton Peregrine, who clearly had a thing for Eva, couldn't hide his feelings. Eva, who was in her middle years and managed her family's perfume company, was his boss. Braxton, only 24, had recently started working there as a junior accountant. Eva often singled out Braxton from the group of new hires this year, just as she often did when looking for a new playmate. Even though she and her husband had only been married for a little over 2 years, she was already tired of him. He was the CFO of the family business and kept to himself, which Eva found boring but stable. While she acknowledged that he was good for a romp or two every few weeks, Eva considered him nothing more than maintenance. Martin, Eva's husband, was tall and trim at 6'2", and he stayed fit with daily swimming. Eva admitted that she married him because she needed financial stability, as well as the love and support of a good man to succeed. It wasn't that she didn't love him, she did, but she felt she needed a younger man to fulfill her in bed. Eva was the top spokesperson for Sachet Fragrances, always in the spotlight of TV ads and magazine spreads, even at 45. She made a big impact in both business and her personal life. Before marrying Martin, she kept her after-hours affairs well hidden, and Braxton was her latest attempt to find a new companion. This was their first date, and Eva, in her first extramarital affair, wanted to make sure everything was okay. Braxton passed a thorough check by Eva's security team, a routine for all the men in her life. Other than a college breakup, his background was spotless, which Eva found appealing, but she was keen to know him beyond the background check. Despite his accountant role, Braxton was quite charming and polite, particularly noticeable when Eva dropped by Martin's accounting department. He stood out with his broad shoulders, stylish suit, and modern aura, contrasting with her husband Martin's old-fashioned style. Martin married Eva out of deep love, seeing her as the most beautiful and smart woman, and Eva felt the same. After dating for nearly a year, Martin proposed, and Eva joyfully said yes. Initially, Martin didn't intend to work at Eva's company, but as they became engaged, he got more involved. When the company needed to convert some debt into private shares, Martin was key in managing it successfully. Eva then made him the CFO of Sachet Fragrances, and he was proud to support his wife and her business. Before marrying, Martin knew about Eva's history with younger men, which they discussed thoroughly. Eva reassured him those days were behind her. Despite lingering doubts about her fidelity, Martin trusted Eva and emphasized that trust was crucial for their marriage. They married when he was 39 and she was 43, enjoying a passionate first year together. However, Martin couldn't help but suspect that Eva might be unfaithful, though he kept these suspicions to himself without any solid proof. Entering their second year, Martin felt their passion wane and again doubted Eva's loyalty, but without any evidence. As CEO, Eva had access to all company information, which meant she could easily uncover any secrets if she chose to. Their 5,000-square-foot house was too big for just Martin and his wife. Martin would have rather saved the money from their expensive home to invest. He would have been happy with a simpler place, like a condo. However, he did love their indoor-outdoor pool and took great care of it, even adjusting the pH levels to stop his dark brown hair from turning green like it did in his school swimming days. In June 2010, the fragrance industry kicked off a new year with a bang by launching a new scent right before the busy holiday season. This fragrance became a hit, endorsed by celebrities and becoming very popular. As ads with Eva started in late September, the product became even more popular. Eva was often gone, busy with promotions, and Martin wondered about her loyalty, feeling uneasy about the attention she got from other men. While Martin handled their business finances and could spot a potential hit, he knew he needed to sort out his personal concerns but didn't know how to start. When Eva returned from her month-long roadshow after Thanksgiving, she was exhausted and spent nearly 36 hours sleeping. Martin, attentive to her needs, showered her with love and affection. Despite feeling perplexed by his wife's behavior, Martin found solace in caring for her, which softened his suspicions about her fidelity. Martin anticipated the end of Eva's hectic promotional tour as the holiday season approached its conclusion. He looked forward to spending Christmas with her, hoping to reignite the spark that had faded since early summer. Despite staying in touch with Eva during her travels across the US and Europe promoting the new product line, Martin couldn't shake his doubts about her fidelity. While she was away, he had discreetly installed micro cameras throughout the house. He only discovered their exact locations when he checked their feeds one evening before Ava's return. Even then, the camera's advanced features, like tracking, zooming, and focusing, made it difficult to pinpoint their exact positions. Martin even caught himself on camera one evening, noticing his fly was partially down, which embarrassed him. Nevertheless, he believed the cameras would capture any potential indiscretions that might occur in their home. The video quality of the cameras was impressive, and the audio quality was even better. Together, they formed a top-notch security system, ostensibly installed for that purpose. Martin had long suspected that Ava's affairs happened while she was traveling, but he couldn't rule out the possibility of them occurring at home. Installing the cameras was his first step in uncovering any infidelities or gaining more insight into Ava's activities, especially since their busy schedules often kept them apart during the day, leaving ample opportunity for Ava to slip away for clandestine encounters. Every room in their house had its own set of 3 cameras, equipped with battery backups in case of power outages for recording purposes. The video footage was transmitted via the internet to a central computer stored in the cloud. Each camera also had its own memory card capable of storing 24 hours of both video and audio recordings. These cameras were wirelessly synced to the main computer in the cloud, which only Martin could access with his password. Special software allowed him to view the footage from each room in split screens, or focus on specific feeds with tapping and zooming functions. It was a sophisticated yet user-friendly setup. As Martin watched the playback of himself entering their home with his fly partially down, he wasn't hoping to catch Ava in any compromising situations. Instead, it was his cautious approach to preparing for any potential scenarios. The thought of a video showing the CEO caught in a scandalous affair would surely entice tabloid magazine editors if they ever got wind of it. Martin hoped that just the possibility of such evidence existing would make Ava understand the consequences. After the holidays, Martin noticed Ava's absence at dinner several times, which made him feel uneasy. He was grateful for the presence of the cameras, which provided him with peace of mind. Despite Ava and Martin enjoying a wonderful Christmas with plenty of gifts and a rekindled love life, Martin sensed a change in Ava upon their return to work. However, when he reviewed the camera footage and audio recordings daily, they only reflected love and affection between them. When Ava asked Martin to visit the factory in China at the end of January to ensure quality control and compliance with company standards, he suspected ulterior motives behind her request. Despite his suspicions, he agreed to the trip but remained wary. He would be away for 2 weeks, which he believed was enough time for Ava to potentially entertain one of her lovers at home while he was conveniently out of the country. This time, however, he reassured himself, he had the cameras to keep an eye on things. Early on the day of his departure, Ava woke up Martin with a BJ, which wasn't unusual for her. Martin, now even more vigilant, was relieved that the cameras had been installed. Once Martin left for his trip to Asia in late January, Ava had her own plans in place. She intended to invite Braxton over for dinner at their house, rather than going out to one of the fancy South Beach restaurants. She felt confident that she didn't need to seduce Braxton, as he had already shown interest during their previous dinner. Having her lovers come to her gave Eva a sense of control and power over the situation. Braxton was determined to have Eva, viewing her husband Martin as inconsequential. He didn't find Martin physically intimidating and believed he couldn't satisfy Eva's desires. Braxton saw himself as the better man to fulfill Eva's needs. He considered his size and performance in bed as superior, confident that he could satisfy Eva in ways Martin couldn't. Braxton also saw his relationship with Eva as a potential stepping stone to advance his career, aiming to secure the CFO position with her support. Midday after Martin's departure, Eva summoned Braxton to her office. Braxton wasted no time in arriving, eager to comply with Ava's request. Eva appreciated punctuality and liked her men to adhere to her schedule. "Braxton, thanks for being on time. Let's get down to business. Would you join me for dinner at my place tonight? I want to go over the sales figures for our new fragrance from last quarter. Please be there at 7 and bring the sales charts." "Of course. I'll bring all the sales data. You've done an outstanding job with the promotion, Mrs. Terry." "Thanks, Braxton. Just call me Eva when we're alone, like tonight during dinner and our review. Grab the address from my assistant on your way out." Braxton left, feeling a bit disappointed by the lack of flirting. He thought their last date went well, but maybe Ava needed to keep things professional to avoid suspicion. Despite this, he was sure of what would happen later. Eva's gestures hinted at her desire, like licking her lips and twirling her hair. She was careful not to be too obvious, maintaining a coy demeanor. Eva had a full security team monitoring her every move, both electronically and physically. Martin didn't know about the monthly sweeps for bugs in the house, but he was aware of the physical security measures. Her team discovered the hidden cameras soon after Martin installed them. Eva didn't want to expose them, preferring to control the situation. She saw it as a chance to manipulate Martin into thinking she was faithful. Her security director advised against keeping the cameras active, suggesting a device to jam their transmission instead. Eva found it amusing that Martin would have no proof of her infidelity due to his own surveillance. She ordered the jamming device to be installed, amused by the irony of the situation. When Eva got home at 4:30, she relaxed in the large tub with a glass of Chardonnay. The warm water and bubbles eased her into a state of bliss. By 5:30, she was feeling completely relaxed, wearing her robe. She had already told the chef to prepare dinner and wanted to make sure everything was going smoothly. She also needed more wine and decided to get it herself instead of asking the butler. "Martha, is everything set for dinner tonight?" Eva asked as she walked into the kitchen. She saw the table set for two in the dining room with candles, just as she had requested. The place settings were perfect. They would start with lobster bisque, followed by a wedge salad with blue cheese and Chilean sea bass with almond green beans. It was one of Eva's favorite meals, especially with the lemon rosemary finish on the fish, which paired perfectly with her chosen wine. Martha had prepared everything in the kitchen, so Eva just needed to turn on the ovens and burners at the right times. She was confident dinner would be delicious. Eva thought Braxton wouldn't mind helping her serve a few plates as they enjoyed their wine while waiting for dinner. She was feeling mischievous tonight, enjoying the decadence of the moment. The idea of controlling the excitement of forbidden act thrilled her. Around 6:15, she went back to her bedroom to get ready for the evening. With a click of her remote control, she disabled all of Martin's cameras, ensuring complete privacy. Now, to anyone watching, the screens would only show static. Her calendar showed a dinner appointment with a new client. With the cameras off, a different scene was about to unfold. Sipping her wine while looking at her closet, she pondered her outfit choice. A business suit felt too formal, while a short skirt seemed too risque for her status. However, her new red dress, paired with heels and pearls, felt just right. She had purchased the dress in Paris during her promotional tour, and it was unique. She was glad to have found it. She briefly wondered what Martin would think if he saw her in this state, flushed with desire and eager for passion. However, she pushed those thoughts aside. Only younger men could satisfy her craving for intense. She was confident that Braxton, like a lion, would be eager to engage in passionate lovemaking, and she anticipated multiple encounters in her own bed. She didn't dwell on the consequences of her affair as a married woman. Instead, she felt entitled to pursue her desires without guilt. She finished getting ready just as the doorbell rang, a little before 7. Her date was on time, which boosted her confidence and desire, knowing she held the reins. She casually made her way downstairs. As per her instructions, the cook and butler had already left. Braxton looked quite appealing in his powder blue shirt with a few buttons undone. Eva had to remind herself that he was all hers for the night, though business matters had to come first. Inviting him in, she was pleasantly surprised to see that he had brought a bottle of wine and flowers, a gesture that warmed her heart. She wasn't accustomed to such romantic gestures aside from those from her husband Martin. It touched her deeply. None of her previous flings had ever included elements of romance, which she found thrilling. Offering him a drink, she poured herself another glass of Chardonnay for the evening, while Braxton politely declined, opting for sparkling water instead. She double-checked her instructions from Martha to ensure everything was perfect as she started on the soup. Meanwhile, Martin had landed in Tokyo and was awaiting his next flight to Beijing when his phone alerted him to an issue. Reviewing the details, he found that the cameras had reported a malfunction. Attempting to access the main server, he discovered that the feed from the cameras was offline. Perplexed, he checked a secondary screen, which showed that the cameras had power but were only transmitting white noise. Martin, frustrated, tried every button in the app, including the advanced option he'd never touched before, but nothing fixed the problem. In his anger, he repeatedly jabbed at the button, nearly breaking his phone. The cameras had chosen the worst time to fail. Giving up on the app, he decided to talk directly to the security rep, who had claimed the equipment was bulletproof, demanding a refund. Meanwhile, Eva and Braxton enjoyed their meal, discussing sales figures over dinner. Braxton had a glass of wine, but not more. Eva wondered if he was just pacing himself or didn't care for alcohol. Either way, she didn't mind. If he was as good in bed as he was at dinner, he'd be worth it. During the meal, Eva subtly flirted with Braxton by running her stocking-covered foot up his ankle. She was confident he understood her message. He seemed surprised at first, but then smiled, focusing on the sales figures. It felt like a game of cat and mouse, with Eva playing the cat. "Braxton, do you have any interest in older women?" she asked, slipping her high heel back on. "Only if the older woman is you, Eva," he replied casually. "In that case, since we share a mutual interest, maybe we should go to my bedroom. I'm getting a bit tired. It's been a long day, and I want to go over the sales projections for the first quarter." "What about your husband?" he asked quickly. "Martin?" She glanced at the clock. "He should be boarding his flight to Beijing soon," she replied easily. "Lead the way, my love," Braxton said, taking her hand. As they entered the master bedroom, Braxton marveled at the unique furnishings, all carefully chosen to reflect a CEO's taste. Eva settled into a high-backed chair in a cozy seating area away from the bed, crossing her legs and dangling one of her high heels. "Would you mind helping me out of my heels, Braxton?" She reached climax once more, and his is why I prefer younger men, she thought. At one point, she felt she had enough, but Braxton ignored her signals to stop and kept up his relentless pounding. He was screaming, "I own you now, witch." She was starting to hurt, but Braxton continued. Braxton had pushed her to her limits, almost beyond what she could handle. She vowed not to underestimate him again, considering him a potential long-term lover rather than just a casual fling. The idea of a long-term lover made her blush and shiver with fear, consumed by guilt for her first affair since marriage. No longer carefree like her single days, she felt the weight of her commitment to Martin. Oddly, amidst her thoughts of betrayal, she realized how crucial Martin's trust was, even after experiencing intense pleasure with Braxton. Eva fought the urge to scream at Braxton to leave, knowing he wouldn't understand her feelings of betrayal. As Braxton gathered his clothes, Eva lay in bed, quietly whimpering. What had she done? She had tarnished not just herself, but her marriage, too. Martin was her first choice for marriage, offering intellect and love, if not much charm. Reflecting on his support during her hectic promotion, she wondered if he was truly so bad after all. He had 2 out of 3 qualities she desired, and he did love her. Who else would tolerate her after her demanding month-long promotion, or provide such support both at work and emotionally? Braxton silently acknowledged her signal to leave as he exited her bedroom, his satisfied grin revealing his confidence in their future encounters. He left his socks behind, pondering if the housekeeper would discover them and mistakenly include them in Martin's laundry. Meanwhile, Martin's frustration grew as he disembarked the plane in China, still troubled by his malfunctioning cameras. He hesitated to call Eva, realizing it was late in Miami. What could he learn from her? Likely nothing substantial. Would she admit, "I had a great evening and slept with a younger man"? He doubted she would be that candid or foolish. During the hotel ride, Martin started to believe that Eva, or more likely her security team, had discovered and disabled the cameras. He wondered why they would do that. The thought of Eva cheating on him unsettled him deeply. It could ruin the partnership they had built so carefully, based on trust, honesty, and fidelity, principles they had discussed thoroughly before marriage. Though he had doubts and suspicions, Martin knew he needed solid proof next time. His trip to China turned out to be dull. He went through the motions, checking figures and inspecting the assembly line, even though he had little knowledge of fragrance manufacturing. He managed to fake his way through conversations, but his host saw through his lack of expertise. 2 weeks later, he returned home, expecting Eva not to be there. To his surprise, she greeted him at the airport in a stunning red dress, as if coming off a promotional tour with pearls and high heels. She greeted him warmly. "Hey, Marty, I'm so happy you're back. I've really missed you." She hugged him tightly, planting a deep kiss on his lips. Martin was surprised but delighted by her affectionate welcome. He kissed her back with equal fervor. As they pulled apart, he couldn't help but wonder if her enthusiasm was driven by guilt. "I missed you too. What's with the big welcome?" he asked curiously. "I just missed my husband, that's all," she said, pouting slightly. "Of course. I missed you too. Are you hungry?" "Let's head home. Martha made dinner. I just want some alone time with you tonight," Eva said, her eyes betraying a hint of guilt. Martin could see it clearly in her expression, even though his cameras had let him down. "Sounds good. And what's for dessert?" he asked, raising an eyebrow with a smile. Eva grinned with playful eyes. I am. Eva and Martin spent the entire weekend in bed, enjoying each other's company, eating together, and showering together. It felt like they were reliving their honeymoon. When Monday rolled around, they showered together again to prepare for another day at work. During the weekend, Eva experienced something with Martin that she never felt with Braxton: love. When Martin held her in his arms, she felt cherished, safe, and secure. Their time together over the weekend reaffirmed the depth of Martin's love and care for her. It also made her realize how Braxton had treated her poorly the weekend before. She briefly considered her own shortcomings, but quickly pushed those thoughts aside, not wanting to spoil the happiness from her wonderful weekend with Martin. Martin drove his Ferrari to work, although Eva disliked the car. She found it uncomfortable, noisy, and too fast for her liking. Martin usually drove a Tesla, but he decided to take out the Ferrari since he hadn't used it during his 2-week absence and wanted to give it a spin to clear out the engine. Eva arranged for transportation to work because she couldn't stand riding in Martin's Ferrari. She thought it was for the best anyway. She wanted to catch up on her emails, which she had neglected over the weekend while she focused on showering Martin with affection. Her plan seemed to work perfectly, as Martin showed no signs of suspecting anything about Braxton's visits to the house and his overnight stays before Martin returned. Martin was relieved that Eva opted not to ride with him. He was puzzled by the sudden reactivation of the cameras the day after he left for his trip. Being meticulous about details, he planned to have the security company he hired investigate the situation. He made the call on his way to work. Having provided the security firm with a key during the initial installation, accessing the cameras was not an issue. Since it was Monday, none of the staff were available, so he didn't expect any additional information to come up. By late morning, he received word that the cameras were back to normal. However, the specialist mentioned a discovery made during their scan of the house that day. They found another electronic device with repeaters installed, which wasn't there during the initial installation. Although they weren't certain of the device's purpose, they speculated it might be a jamming device that interfered with the cameras. Martin immediately connected the dots, concluding that Eva's security team had found and neutralized the cameras. Martin felt a sinking sensation in his heart. He understood the gravity of Eva being aware of the cameras. Now he was convinced that Eva was having an affair in their own home. There seemed to be no other explanation. If Eva had approached him about the cameras, he would have simply explained they were for their safety. But she hadn't. She knew about them and deliberately disabled them. After lunch, he planned to take some initial steps to safeguard his finances. Eva instructed her longtime personal assistant, Gina, to arrange a meeting with Braxton in her office at 10. Gina had been by Eva's side for a decade, earning more than most in the company due to her unwavering loyalty to Eva, which had been cultivated over the years. However, Gina had harbored suspicions about Eva's interactions with Braxton since the first time he was called to her office. While she admired Eva and aspired to reach her level of success one day, she couldn't shake the feeling that Eva's actions toward her husband were morally wrong. Martin remained oblivious to Eva's involvement with Braxton, just as he had been unaware of her previous affairs before their marriage. Gina hoped Martin wasn't completely unaware of what was happening, but she recognized that corporate politics often overshadowed personal matters. She wished she had a way to alert Martin to his wife's indiscretions. Martin always treated her with respect, never condescending to her. His demeanor was friendly, personable, and genuinely caring towards everyone in the company. Gina understood why Eva found him attractive. Martin was physically fit, clean-shaven, and had piercing blue eyes. Despite being slightly older than her at 35, Gina still considered him youthful enough. She even felt a flutter of excitement whenever Martin visited Eva's office. While his fashion sense wasn't his strongest suit, Gina believed that a person's character mattered more than their appearance, contrary to what Eva might have implied to Martin. Gina had Braxton seated next to her at 9:55, prepared for his meeting with Eva. She found it odd that Eva hadn't asked him to bring any materials to make the meeting appear more legitimate. Was this meeting just a pretext for something more intimate? Gina wondered if Eva would engage in intimate activities with Braxton right in her office. She contemplated listening in at the closed door or activating the intercom while pretending to be on a call, although she knew it carried the risk of Eva noticing the illuminated intercom light. Eva buzzed Gina on the intercom, who promptly signaled Braxton to enter. He came in, shut the door behind him, and Gina stayed on the line while pressing the intercom button again. She knew it was risky, but her curiosity outweighed her caution, as she sought confirmation of her suspicions about Braxton and Eva. "Braxton, we need to end this. Martin's back from China, and I don't want to take any more risks with you," Eva declared. Braxton squirmed in his seat. "And what if I don't want to? What if I want to keep having fun with the CEO of the company?" He spoke loudly, almost loud enough for anyone outside Eva's office to hear. "Braxton, you better hope you're just acting out of petulance and not making threats. It wouldn't go well for you if you were," Eva replied, lowering her voice, hoping Braxton would follow suit. "Oh, really? What if I spill the beans to your husband, who also happens to be my boss, about what went down last weekend?" Braxton challenged. "Wow, I never thought you'd stoop so low or disregard my feelings like this. I guess you win then. Would you like to get it on right here in my office? Maybe on my desk?" Ava gestured across the desk, appearing intrigued. Braxton, somewhat stunned but visibly aroused, began to nod in agreement. "You foolish man. You'll never touch me again, especially not here in my office. Who do you think you are? Go ahead. Tell Martin whatever you want. It's your word against mine, and I can assure you who Martin will believe," Eva asserted with resolve, though she felt a bit shaky inside. "Well then, let's wait and see," Braxton muttered as he rose to leave. Eva, never one to shy away from confrontation, leaned in and said, "Braxton, before you go, consider this. Our whole affair was recorded. With a bit of Photoshop magic, it could look like you forced yourself on me, like you practically aped me, especially that first night. Remember when I yelled at you to stop? How would that look on your record?" "You witch," Braxton spat out angrily. "I am, and I accept that, but we're finished, and so are you. I suggest you start looking for your next job and leave the company peacefully if you know what's good for you," Eva said, turning her attention back to her desk, dismissing Braxton. Gina silently hung up the phone, hearing the entire exchange. Braxton slammed the door as he left Ava's office, startling Gina, who immediately called Ava. "Eva, everything okay? Should I call security?" "No, Gina, everything's fine. Just a little misunderstanding about the company's direction. Nothing to worry about. But thanks for checking in." Braxton, Mr. Peregrine was disappointed with how things turned out. "If you're sure everything's okay, can I get you anything? Maybe a cup of tea?" "Actually, that would be great. Thanks, Gina, you're the best." Gina went to prepare Eva's tea. She had confirmed her suspicions about what was happening. She also knew that Braxton was finished. Should she betray Eva's trust and tell Martin? She was torn between loyalty to her boss and doing what was right for her husband and her conscience. "Braxton tore out of here like he sat on spikes, Eva," Gina said while placing her tea on a coaster in Eva's office. "Just a minor misunderstanding, nothing to fret over. It was unfortunate, but it was time for him to go. I expect Mr. Peregrine will start looking for a new job," Eva clarified. "Wow! I didn't realize you were so informed about everything happening, even in finance downstairs, Eva. Impressive. But why didn't Martin handle it?" Eva felt a tad irritated by Gina's questions. This was her company, and everyone answered to her. While she didn't have to explain herself, she figured it might be wise to calm Gina down rather than dismiss her. Well, sometimes when advice is given but ignored, it's best to address it immediately. I saw a problem brewing, so I took action. Gina pressed on. "So, Martin told him what to do, but he didn't listen?" Ava took a slow sip of her tea. "Thanks for the tea, Gina. I have some photo shoots to go over. Please have Michelle come in at 11 sharp. Thanks." With that, Gina was dismissed, as was Eva's usual approach when a conversation ended. Gina felt unsettled by the encounter. She left Ava's office gracefully, but with a burning feeling inside. How could this woman treat someone like Martin unfairly? Once back at her desk, Gina phoned Martin. "Hi, Martin. It's Gina," she whispered, even though no one else could hear her. "Can we meet for lunch at 12:30? I need to talk to you. It's really important." "Sure, Gina. How about Tres Amigos down on 3rd? You said 12:30? "Yeah, that works. Thanks, Martin. Sorry for the short notice, but we really need to talk." "No problem, Gina. I'll see you at 12:30. Martin was already sitting in a booth towards the back, and he signaled for Gina to join him when she entered. The waitress came over right after Gina sat down, and they quickly ordered from the lunch menu, deciding to share a chicken fajita. Curiosity got the better of Martin. Once the waitress left, he asked, "Gina, what's so urgent that we needed to talk over lunch?" Gina took a sip of her iced tea and glanced at Martin. He was good-looking, but he was married, Gina reminded herself. Yet maybe after she spilled the beans, he'd be seeking a divorce. "I might lose your respect after what I tell you," but I respect you too much not to say it. Martin was taken aback and on high alert now. Gina, you've been loyal to Sachet for ages, longer than I have. I've always believed you put the company's best interests first. I couldn't think any less of you than the professional you are. That reassured Gina a bit. She composed herself and recounted the morning meeting with Braxton Peregrine. Martin, I think Eva is having or had an affair with Braxton Peregrine. This morning, I overheard a conversation between them where it seemed like Eva was ending things with him. She said since you came back from China, she couldn't risk you finding out. Martin was shocked. His worst suspicions were now confirmed. He took a big gulp of his iced tea, saying nothing, his gaze fixed downwards at the table. Gina was amazed that he wasn't showing more emotion. Then a thought struck her. Perhaps he already knew. Their lunch dish arrived before Martin could respond, and he welcomed the interruption. The waitress left, leaving only the sound of the sizzling chicken fajita for two between them. Martin locked eyes with Gina as he spoke. Thanks. Why are you thanking me, Martin? I just told you your wife is cheating. That's not the reaction I expected. Aren't you angry, wanting to lash out at me, your wife, or Braxton? Gina's voice rose with each question. Gina, how long have you been with Sachet? Martin asked, unfazed. 10 years last December? Why? Gina replied, her agitation evident but her tone lowered to match Martin's. Stay with me here. It'll make sense soon. How long have you been working directly for Eva? Also 10 years. I've always been on her team. Where are you going with this? I just told you your wife is cheating and you're asking about my job history. I don't get it. During your time with Eva, has she had flings with younger guys whenever she pleased? Yes, Gina answered, still puzzled. So what's different about Mr. Peregrine? Are you telling me you're okay with Eva fooling around? Sorry, I must have misjudged you. I won't mention it again. No, Gina, you've got it wrong. You didn't overstep. I won't stand for Eva having affairs. What's different now? Martin pressed. You're married. It's just not right. Exactly, that's the point. I'm married to the woman who won't stop sleeping around, it seems. And for the record, I'm not okay with it. That's why she ended things with him today and practically smothered me with closeness this past weekend. That's probably more detail than I need. But I get your point. You think she's feeling guilty? I'm sure she is. And she's probably feeling pretty vulnerable too, Martin responded calmly. So, what's your plan? For the rest of the day? Nothing much. I'll stick to my routine, stay in my office, and figure out how to handle this mess of a marriage. How can you stay so calm, Martin? Seriously. I had a boyfriend once who did something similar, and even though I'm not married, I was crushed. Spent the whole weekend drowning my sorrows in Starbucks ice cream. Gina, I knew who Eva was before we got married. I mean, I knew about her lifestyle. Can't say I really knew her, though. She swore she'd changed, that she was ready to settle down with just one man, me. I believed her, thought I could trust her. But she's like a chameleon, can change her colors to fit in anywhere. Martin continued. Gina, you've gone above and beyond today by telling me all this. I owe you big time, and I'm going to share something with you, but I need you to promise not to breathe a word of it to anyone, not even Eva. Can you keep this between us? Absolutely, that's a given. Gina looked a bit pale, then seemed lost in thought. Although I guess I already broke Eva's trust today by spilling her secrets to you, so I see why you're asking. Gina, I may have misjudged Eva, but I know I can trust you. I had cameras installed at our house while she was away on her promo tour. A camera? Why? Gina exclaimed, shocked. I had a feeling Eva might be messing around, or at least thinking about it. All the signs were there. Then when she sent me off to China for a couple of weeks after her tour, I was pretty sure. I figured the cameras would catch her if she was up to something. What went down? Braxton had to be in the mix by then, right? Didn't the cameras catch what you thought was going on? You must have already known everything I just told you. I figured that too, Martin said, sounding serious. But somehow Eva must have found out about the cameras and got some tech installed in the house to shut them off whenever she wanted privacy for her affairs. So that talk she had with Braxton about the cameras today wasn't just her bluffing. She actually knew about them, but blocked them from working. Sneaky move. Sorry, no offense. I had no clue. Do you think she recorded anything? I mean, if you couldn't see her. Maybe she redirected the feeds somewhere else instead of just shutting them down. Gina, you're onto something. I didn't even consider that. It's subtle, but maybe there's some truth to what she said. I don't know all the tech stuff, but it's possible. I'll hit up my security company again and have them check out those boxes. I was too mad about Eva blocking the cameras to think about other possibilities. Thanks. I gotta run, Martin, and I'm lost in all this tech talk. But you've shown me a whole new side of Eva I never saw coming. It's crazy how far she'd go to fool you. I might not be a saint, but I can't sit by and watch someone as decent as you get played by Eva. You're too good for that. I'll keep our conversation today with me to the grave." Gina hurried out, while Martin lingered, sipping more iced tea and settling the bill. He took his time getting back to the office. It seemed Ava had moved on to another young fling, even if she had ended things with Braxton. She always thought she could outsmart him and get away with it. Maybe she'd lay low for a bit to throw off suspicion, but Martin was certain she'd revert to her old ways once things calmed down. The fact that she disabled the cameras to hide her affair proved it. Back at the office, Martin checked his voicemail. Eva left a message saying Braxton Peregrine was no longer with the company, and he should arrange his exit package with HR. No explanation given. Martin would have to come up with one, which shouldn't be too difficult given the situation. He had slept with his boss's wife. There had to be a box to tick on the form for that, he thought. At 5, he summoned Braxton to his office. "Braxton, it's been brought to my attention that you've been fudging company expense reports. Unfortunately, we have a strict policy against employee theft. Effective immediately, your employment is terminated. Please gather your personal belongings and leave within 10 minutes. Security is on standby to ensure you only take your own stuff." "You clueless fool! You're just following orders from your wife!" Braxton spat. "Pardon?" Martin responded calmly, questioning his accusation. "You heard me? You're firing me because I slept with your wife, and now you're trying to save your marriage." "You're right. I am firing you. She's my boss. Thanks for admitting you slept with Ava. I hope it was worth it," Martin retorted, devoid of emotion. "You're nothing but a weakling. You get that? I showed your wife a good time, something you could only dream of, and she kept coming back for more. What does that say about you as a man?" Braxton was firing on all cylinders now, feeling like he still had power over Eva. He thought their earlier chat was just Eva putting him in his place for their fling last weekend. "That might be true, Braxton. We'll never know for sure. But what I do know is that you're being fired without mercy. No recommendations and a stain on your record that'll make it hard to find work again, especially in finance. Being accused of financial misconduct doesn't sit well with employers or auditors," Martin replied calmly. "Is that all you've got? Some bogus charge of expense fraud?" Braxton retorted, but with less intensity. "Well, that and the fact that you just admitted to sleeping with the top executive who happens to be my wife. I think that's enough, don't you?" Martin responded. "Don't you care about your wife, you jerk?" Braxton asked. "Not particularly, do you? Oh, wait, you thought you were some big shot stealing her from me? I must have misunderstood your ranting back there. You thought you were taking away my prize?" Martin replied sarcastically. "So, you're not mad at your wife and me for our affair? And you think I'm better in bed than you? You really are pathetic," Braxton said, losing momentum. "Nope, not mad at all. Actually, I feel kind of relieved. If you want Eva, she's all yours. Seems like she was never really mine anyway, just borrowing her. Go ahead, call her whenever you feel like it. She's had plenty of guys like you before. Honestly, you're just another name in her little black book. Bet she's already moved on, looking for her next conquest. Didn't she hint at that this morning? Sure, she's pretty, but she's high maintenance and I can't afford the upkeep." Braxton was losing his bravado. He thought maybe he could provoke Martin into a fight, knowing he could easily win, especially against a swimmer from college who was no match for his wrestling skills. "I'll just pack up my stuff," Braxton said quietly, defeated. "One last tip, Braxton. You might want to get yourself checked." "I never take risks. Now get out of my office, you scumbag," Martin spat out, though he knew Eva was probably clean. But he had one more surprise for Braxton. Braxton collected his things and left the building, seething internally. About 20 yards from his car, he reached for his keys to unlock it. When he pressed the button, the car exploded into flames. It rocked off the ground before settling back, burning fiercely. Even the tires were ablaze. If he had been a few feet closer, he realized, he'd be dead. He had to admit, maybe he had messed with the wrong guy and angered a very powerful adversary in Eva's husband. The weekend felt chilly between Eva and Martin. She brushed off Braxton's car incident as bad luck. Martin wasn't himself. Eva tried talking to him on Saturday, but he remained distant on Sunday. Eva sensed something was off and suspected she knew what it was. She decided not to push him, hoping he'd open up eventually. She figured Braxton spilled the beans about their affair to Martin. If Martin wouldn't talk to her, she had to assume he already knew. Braxton wasn't afraid of Martin. He spent the weekend reminiscing about Eva, longing for her more than any other woman. He was drawn to the challenge of winning her over, despite her being married. She craved surrendering to him. Braxton didn't care about his old Honda. The fire department handled the car fire, and insurance would replace it. The police investigation found nothing significant except some burnt wires near the fuel pump as the likely cause. Meanwhile, Martin plotted. He had a plan to bring down Eva and Braxton. He aimed to make Gina the face of sachet fragrances and take over the company. His strategy was simple yet effective. It would secure his future and his sanity. His elaborate plan with expensive cameras was useless. Martin realized Eva wouldn't remain faithful given enough time. He had plenty of time on his hands, which he spent working relentlessly week after week. Despite Eva's attempts to cling to him, he kept his distance, showing her no affection or emotion. Resisting her allure was tough, but he persisted for 6 long weeks until Eva finally gave in to her desires for affection. After 6 weeks of Martin's silent treatment, Eva faltered. She called Braxton and arranged to meet him at her house at 6. Braxton, knowing it was a booty call, prepared himself and arrived promptly. Finding the house dark, Braxton wondered if anyone was home. Eva answered the door, using her key fob to disable the cameras, and quickly let him inside. She informed him that Martin was away at a conference until the next day, but made it clear that Braxton had to leave once she was satisfied. Braxton understood it was a straightforward hookup. He complied with Eva's rules. Eva handed Braxton a glass of wine, outlining the terms. He wouldn't stay the night, he had to please her, and he'd leave when she said so. Braxton nodded in agreement, understanding the conditions clearly. Then finish your wine and get to work. You nearly cost me my marriage. Make this count, Braxton, or it will be the last time you ever have me. I mean it. When their encounter ended, Eva abruptly declared, Enough. I'm done for the night. Get your clothes and get out of here. Braxton felt used, despite enjoying the experience somewhat. So, what am I? A human Johnson? Who says you get to call all the shots? He retorted. I do. Now get out. I'll lock the doors after you've gone, Eva replied firmly. Seething with anger inside, Braxton realized he had already revealed his affair with Eva to her husband, so he decided to tread carefully this time. As he stepped onto Martin's side of the bed, he felt something nudging his foot. Raising his toes slightly, he suspected something was under the bed. When he lowered his foot back down, he felt something metallic touching them. Just as he was about to pull away, a clang startled both him and Eva. An intense pain shot through his right foot. Attempting to move it, he found himself unable to do so, yelping in agony as it started to gush from his wound. Urging Eva to turn on the light amidst gasps of pain, she switched on her bedside lamp. My God, Braxton, what the heck is wrong with you? I said, get the heck out of my house, Eva exclaimed, alarmed by his distress. She studied his pained expression and realized something was seriously amiss. What happened? My foot's gone. I can't feel it anymore, he sobbed in agony. Eva sprang out of bed and rushed to his side, flicking on Martin's bedside lamp for a better look. Recoiling in horror, Eva saw a bear trap had caught Braxton's foot, almost severing it, chained to the bedpost frame. What the heck is this? What did you do to me? I swear I'll off you, Braxton yelled in pain and anger. Shut up, Braxton. I didn't do anything. But I think my husband did. Oh God, this looks bad. Just stay still, Eva responded, her voice trembling. Panicked and unsure, Eva dashed to the bathroom for towels to stem the bleeding. Braxton's cries and screams echoed intermittently. Reluctant to move the chain, she cautiously reached in and managed to reach its end, then instructed Braxton to pull his foot out from under the bed. He retreated cautiously, his screams growing louder as his mangled foot emerged from the trap. Most of his right foot was ensnared, the sharp teeth of the trap deeply embedded in its bones. His toes began to turn blue, and he felt helpless, unable to free himself without risking passing out. He desperately pleaded with Eva to call emergency for help. Martin's phone alerted him to the camera malfunction, but this time he knew it wasn't a glitch. He had the security company reprogram the cameras to broadcast on multiple frequencies, bypassing Eva's jamming device. Watching in real time from the cloud server, he listened to Eva's commands and watched the scene unfold, feeling like he was watching his own private movie. After the fun and games, while Eva was issuing her invitation to Braxton to leave, he stepped on the mouse trap. In this case, it really was more like a bear trap. But Martin figured better safe than sorry. A snapped toenail was hardly penalty enough for stealing his wife. So Martin went with the upgraded module from the local sports shop. It looked like the stainless steel bolts and chain he used were holding well anchored into the solid oak headboard. He wondered if Eva would call emergency, or led him to bleed out. In a frenzy of pain and panic, Braxton lashed out at Ava, his movements restricted by the chain. Feeling weak, he realized he needed medical attention urgently. "Ava, I have to get to the hospital. I'm going to die if I don't get this trap off me. Hand me my phone, please, I'm begging you as one human being to another. You have to get help." Braxton was pleading with Ava. Ava felt overwhelmed with panic, unsure of what to do next. Calling emergency would bring help, but it would also trigger an investigation. She felt just as trapped as Braxton. In a surreal moment, she even considered using her magnum to end Braxton's suffering and then her own. Sitting heavily in her chair, she questioned her own decency, recalling Martin's stern warnings about trust and fidelity. Meanwhile, Braxton struggled on the floor, attempting to pry the trap open with little success. Each effort caused him more pain, and he grew weaker with each attempt. Despite his cries for help, Ava seemed distant and unresponsive, lost in her own thoughts. Ava realized she was caught in Martin's trap, both figuratively and literally. Her marriage was crumbling, and now her lover's life hung in the balance. She understood that exposing the affair to save Braxton would have dire consequences for her reputation and position at Sachet. Meanwhile, Martin watched the events unfold, acknowledging that his marriage was beyond repair. While he considered calling for help, he decided to let Ava face the consequences of her actions. Braxton's condition worsened, his face growing paler with each passing moment. Even with significant blood loss, a person can still hang on. Martin believed Ava had a chance to make things right. He considered calling her again, but decided against it. Gina finished her shower, the sound of the hotel's blow-dryer confirming it. Martin was about to turn off the feed when Ava retrieved her magnum from the wardrobe. Martin was aware that she kept it for self-defense and practiced at the shooting range regularly. He knew if she took aim at something, odds were good she would end it. She took aim at Braxton. He was almost passed out. Perhaps she thought she was putting him out of his misery. Braxton looked up at the last second into her cold, lifeless eyes, watching his life pass in front of him. She pulled the trigger, but the shot was wide, into Martin's pillow. Maybe she really was trying to off what she was aiming at, but he wasn't there. With Braxton still fighting for his life, Martin watched in horror. A few moments went by as Gina entered the bedroom wearing lingerie and high heels as Martin quickly closed his iPad. "My dear, do you recall when I told you that you could easily manage Sachet, even with your eyes closed?" "I do, but I figured you were just flattering me. I didn't think you were serious, even though you tried to convince me otherwise," Gina coyly responded. "Ah, but I meant every word. And now I believe your opportunity is just around the corner. Can I show my affection to the next CEO of Sachet? Only if you promise not to be intimate with your slat wife again." "I don't like sharing," she quickly retorted. "Don't worry, my dear. I've been faithful to you since the beginning of our relationship. Plus, I think she'll be a bit preoccupied for the next couple of decades," he assured her. The police were summoned after neighbors heard a shot from Martin and Eva's house. They showed up fully geared, worried about a potential break-in. Everyone wondered why they weren't alerted sooner, given the cameras linked directly to the security company. If there had been a break-in, the company would have been notified, prompting them to call the cops. When they entered, the scene resembled something from a horror flick. A woman lay unconscious on the bed in her robe, red substance staining it. In her right hand was a tool. Beside her, unclothed man was on the brink of passing. The cops couldn't gauge the extent of the injuries. They immediately requested paramedics and the fire department while assessing the situation. As they checked each room, they waited for more emergency responders. They found the man caught in a bear trap attached to the bed. Among themselves, the police speculated it seemed like a kinky encounter gone awry, though they couldn't be certain. Eva seemed physically okay, but she couldn't talk. The police tried to question her, but decided to send her to the hospital with the paramedics. The unidentified man trapped in the bear trap was eventually freed by the fire department using the jaws of life. They pried open the trap to release his foot, which hung limply as they moved him onto a stretcher for transport. By the next morning, Eva had recovered physically, but her mental state lingered. She remained mute. The bear trap was seen as a lethal weapon. Eva faced charges for having it, causing bodily harm, and not helping Braxton when he was severely injured. She was also charged with firing the magnum illegally. She wasn't fit for trial and was sent to a psychiatric hospital for treatment, where she stayed for the rest of her life. Braxton survived, though he lost about 2/3 of his right foot. He was in critical condition. He kept blaming Eva's husband for setting the trap, but no one paid attention. After all, he shouldn't have been in bed with another man's wife. The police figured if he was foolish enough to mess with a married woman, he got what was coming to him. Martin successfully convinced the board of directors that Gina should step up as the new face and leader of Sachet Fragrances. Gina, a decade younger than Ava, brought a vibrant energy that would be missed if Eva couldn't return. Gina was well versed in how Eva managed the company, having served as her personal assistant and knowing all the key players in the industry. The board agreed, wanting to maintain stability and distance themselves from any potential scandal during Eva's absence. Gina proved both her beauty and her business prowess in leading Sachet Fragrances. She launched a new fragrance called Secrecy, which quickly gained popularity. She promoted it much like Ava did with her last fragrance, but with one notable change. Martin, her husband, joined her on every step of her promotional tour covering 30,000 miles. As for catching rodents, the simplest solution is indeed the basic mousetrap, sized just right for the job.